This is Tuesday, May 7th. There are 78 days until San Diego Comic-Con 2024. Welcome to SDConCast, the official podcast of the San Diego Comic-Con unofficial blog.
VANUHTEE go. Oh my God, I love Live Journal and my Live Journal loves me. Current audience hyperactive, current news, refuge 73. I love the color scheme, it's pink and purple.
Hello, everybody. I'm your host, James Riley, and joining me on the podcast, as always, Carrie Dixon.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for joining us.
And also joining us from the blog, Andy Wagner. And our special guest for the evening, he's a writer, an editor, a moderator, and all things, Mark Evanier. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm here again. You can't get rid of me. As long as you do these, I'm going to pop up on them every year.
Nice. We love it. Actually, this is like 5, 6, somewhere around 6-ish times, 7. So yeah,
it's a tradition at this
it's
point.
a tradition now. All right, so this is the first episode of the season, and can you believe that we've been doing this podcast for 13 years? And it is the 15th anniversary of the blog, so we are celebrating both this year. During the show, we can take your comments and questions. You can tweet us at SD_comic_con or use the hashtags SDConCast. We will also be keeping an eye on the YouTube live chat if you wish to comment there. But first up, we are going to talk to Mark. So, Carrie, why don't you take it away?
Well, Mark, we are always so excited to have you join us as the first guest of each season to kick off the official start of the SDCC news season. But I just kind of want to catch up. Like, what have you been doing here in the last couple of months?
I've been sitting at home mostly because I broke my ankle in January.
Oh, no.
Ouch.
And I'm recovering, and I think I will be healed enough to make it all around the convention. But don't do this. It's not a very bright thing to do. The nice thing, the only nice thing that came out of it was I spent a month in a rehab facility. And those are not fun places, except the nurse who was assigned to me, a male nurse who was assigned to the evening shift, walked in and went, "Oh my God, you're the guy who does Gru." Oh my God. and I'm not going to say he neglected his other patients, but he was in my room an awful lot to talk about comics.
So you had a fan.
I had to, everybody gets one. I had to find mine there. Actually,
I mean, hey,
I'll tell you, I broke my ankle at home here, and paramedics came, firemen came, and I have a 2-story house. I, of course, broke my ankle in the top story, and 4 men had to carry me down the stairs. And they finally load me into the ambulance to take me to the hospital. And one of the guys is driving, one of them is riding with me, the other 2 went off in another vehicle. And we get in, and I am in this extreme agony, and my ankle is broken, and I'm thinking how it's going to ruin my life for months to come. I'm in great pain. And the fireman says to me, "I noticed in your house you got a lot of comic books around. Did you ever hear of a guy named Jack Kirby?" Of course, I forgot about the pain and said, "Jack Kirby, let me tell you about Jack Kirby."
I'll bet that took your mind off the pain.
It helped. It helped a little bit to pass the time. I just all the way to the hospital. I told him, and I worked for Jack, and he did this. Jack, I talk about Jack a lot because he was.
I hope that your orderly helper there in the evenings wasn't someone who was unhappy with the last Gru story you wrote and forced you to write a correct ending.
Oh, misery. No, I gave him. We have all these books out of Gru. This is the latest trade paperback, and my shipment of them came while I was in the nursing home, and my assistant brought me a couple. I asked her to bring me a couple copies, and I gave the male nurse, I gave him a copy of this book, and I said, "Now this is not in stores yet," and he acted like I'd handed him the Hope Diamond. He was, "My God, this is not out yet. This is an advance. I have the only copy in the city." I've got a copy. "Oh, I'll treasure this forever." I said, "Well, it's only going to be unique. It's only going to be an advanced copy for about 3 more days." So
3 days
Everybody,
of pleasure.
everybody else will have it Wednesday. So
But he got it before they did.
that's right.
And geeks and nerds, we love being first. So yeah, that was definitely a treasure no matter what.
So if I can switch gears here for a little bit and talk about the panels that you've done over the years. Now, you've hosted a lot of them. You said this is your 56th Comic Con.
It's the 56th San Diego Comic.
So in all those years, you've hosted at least, I'm sure, one panel each year, at least.
I was on one the first year. There were no panels at all the second year, I don't think. The third year, I was on one panel. And then every year for a while, I was on an increasing number until I hit I think the maximum I ever hit was 17 one year. Last year I did.
That's a lot. Yeah.
14, I think, although I wasn't the moderator of all of them. This year I'm going for the record. Yeah, I do a lot of panels.
So
You're going for 8, like more than 17?
Wow.
If I do all the ones I think I may do this year, I will probably be doing 17 or 18.
Well,
Wow.
since there's an
That
anchor
is-
there, there's a golf cart involved.
I sure hope so, because I may not be able to walk much. No, actually, it's not as awful as it seems, because basically I have nothing else to do at the convention but host panels, because I used to just walk around the convention. I don't like to sit behind a table. I don't like to sit there signing stuff. If people want stuff signed, fine, I'll do it, but it's not I don't get that thrill that a lot of people get. I have a friend who considers if you ask him how was the convention, he's liable to say terrible. Only 11 people asked my autograph, and that is the sole criteria for him. But I don't care about it that much. But I don't sell anything at conventions, and I can't keep walking around, especially as I've gotten older and I've had knee problems. So by doing panels, I've always got a place to sit,
That's
And-
smart.
and I feel like I'm making a contribution, and I get to talk to the people I want to talk to. I have
Out of all the people that you've talked to over the years, is there anyone who's your unicorn, the one that you haven't gotten on a panel yet, but you would love to?
Well, there's the cartoon voices panels. I do 2 of those a year. And one of my best friends in the cartoon voice business is the best cartoon voice actor alive, Frank Welker. And he keeps saying, I'll do it some year, I'll do it. He's never done it. But no, the problem for me, I'm 72 years old now. And the thrill of all the early comic conventions for me, and not just San Diego, but any ones I went to, was I always got to meet somebody whose comics I'd grown up on, or it also applied to animation, occasionally to actors, and spend time with them. And if I didn't interview them on a panel, we might go to lunch or dinner. And I got to meet all the people who I could meet who did the comics that I grew up on. They're all gone. The few that are around, I've met. So I can no longer go to a convention and have the thrill of meeting somebody who wrote or drew comics I read when I was 8 years old or 10, 12 years old or such. Last year at San Diego, I did a panel and I interviewed a woman named Barbara Friedlander, who was the editor or associate editor most of the time, but a writer for DC's romance comics in the 60s. She went to work for DC in like 61 in the accounting department, moved to editorial in 62, got out in 1970 to get married. But during that time, she wrote a lot of romance comics. She created a book called Swing with Scooter, which was a popular DC book for a while. And I'd never met her, so I got to sit and interview her about her work. Of all the 150,000 people at the Comic-Con, Barbara had the oldest credits in professional comics, I believe. There was no one in the building who did a comic book in the 30s, 40s, or 50s. So she had the oldest credits of anyone at the convention. And the person in second place, and this scared the hell out of me, was me. I don't think there was anyone else because Marv Wolfman wasn't there. There were people who were in comics before me who were still active, but they didn't turn out for San Diego last year. A few of them will be here this coming year, so I will not be the person with the oldest credits in the room.
Well, that actually leads me to you mentioned comics when you were a kid, so you love classic comics. You love bringing on the people that did all the classic comics. Now we're into modern. Are there any? Do you read any modern comics, or do you collect any?
Well, I collect some because they send them to me. But no, I don't really follow the current comic book industry, and I don't resent it. I just every time I pick up one of these books, I go, "That's nice, but it's not my Spider-Man. It's nice, but it's not my Superman." I mean, they're not doing the characters that. There's a point where you can, and this will horrify some people watching this. You can have read few too many comic books. You can be a little jaded, become a little jaded by it. And I was always as much a fan of the people who did the comics as I was of the characters. There are people in this world who love, Spider-Man. Well, I love Spider-Man drawn by Steve Ditko. I love Spider-Man drawn by John. It's like in movies. If I go to see a James Bond movie, it's not Sean Connery. It's not my James Bond. And so while I can appreciate the skill and admire there's some amazing artists, there's some amazing writers there, they're not really writing for me. And so I don't follow comics as much as I'm up on who the top people are. I respect the careers, I admire the work, but I don't have the same emotional connection to the product I used to.
So in saying that, since you have followed a lot of comics over the years, obviously Jack Kirby is, in most cases, the influence of comics for a lot of creators. Do you think that there's any creators over the last 30 years or so that you can point to and say they're also like big influencers?
I think there's an awful lot of influencers, and you could admire tremendously Jack Kirby, but feel that he didn't get the due he deserved, the credit he deserved, and the fame he deserved. He's getting it posthumously in many cases because the characters live on. But now you could admire an artist and also admire his career and see some of these people who have built important careers and have helped the comic book industry merge as it kind of has with TV and movies in many ways. People think Marvel Comics is Marvel is a publishing. Marvel is an entertainment company, and one of the things they do is comics. And there are people who now blend into the current field. There are people who besides Jack, who influenced the look of the modern comic book. Probably the number two person after Jack would be Neil Adams, who passed away just a couple of years ago. And there's other people who had enormous influence. An awful lot of the new artists these days were influenced by John Buscema. It's obvious, even if they don't know directly who they. I used to say, if Jack Kirby wasn't your favorite artist, he was probably your favorite artist's favorite artist. And there was a generation there where people were in love with some of the people who were inspired by Jack, so that his influence was filtered through them. And now we have another couple generations of people who were influenced by Neil Adams and Jack and Steve Ditko and Will Eisner and guys whose work lives on in some form. If you stand in the middle of the floor at San Diego and turn 360 degrees, almost everywhere you look, there's something that was influenced by Jack. And there's an awful lot that was influenced by Neil, an awful lot that was influenced by Ditko and other people. Some people in the underground. Robert Crumb probably influenced an awful lot of people these days, and guys who did independent comics, and people who did comics that didn't fit into the DC Marvel mold. There's a greater diversity now of styles and approaches, and there's less pressure on creative people to draw like John Buscema, to draw like Neil Adams than there used to be.
So you mentioned a couple of things. One, you said Marvel's an entertainment company now, not just a comic company. That's one of the major differences in comics today. And then you just mentioned that they're not beholden to certain art styles, like there was the Marvel style back in the 60s and that kind of thing. Do you think that those are two of like the biggest differences, or is there any other really major difference in comics today?
Well, it's possible to make a much better living in comics than it ever was if you popular work to share in the success of your ideas. I had the uh, awkward situation. I knew Jerry Siegel very well. I knew Jack, of course. I knew a lot of people who created what are now billion-dollar properties and did not receive any sort of recognition. There was a long time when Jerry Siegel's name was not allowed to be on Superman because he was at war with the company. And so I think one of the big changes is it is a field that people want to get into and stay in many cases. When I got in 1970, most of the guys who were my age were thinking, oh, I want to do comics for a couple of years and then I want to write movies. Oh, I want to do comics for a couple of years and then I want to go draw paperback book covers or magazine illustrations or movie posters. And now it's a field where people, first of all, you can do some of those other things while still in comics. You know, Frank Miller does comics and he writes movies and designs other things. He's a very influential guy also. There's Frank is a person who has inspired an awful lot of people. Jim Steranko inspired a lot of people. Dave Stevens inspired an awful lot of people. There's an awful lot of inspiration out there because it's no longer, you know, to work for Marvel, you got to draw like Jack or John Buscema.
Well, kind of in that along those same lines, the way that trends have kind of shifted and molded over the years. What are some of the shifts over the years that you've seen or even just experienced over Comic Con over the 56 years?
Well, you know, I always use this line in every damn interview I do about Comic Con, which is at the first one we had 300 people. And we thought that was a ton of people. We thought that was an amazing number of people. And now there's 300 people ahead of you lined to buy an Auntie M's pretzel. So, you know, it's become it's no longer a subculture. It is the culture. And in fact, the definition of comics, as Mr. Kirby predicted, has kind of expanded to include movies that have the same appeal as comic books and TV shows and artwork. Everywhere you look at the convention, there's people doing variations on comic books. They've expanded it into toys, which replicate some of the excitement of comic books, or video games. So that's one of the big differences. I have a friend who, if you ask him that question, would say to you the biggest difference in Comic-Con over the years is now that there are attractive women at the convention, which was not, you know, it was kind of at the early ones, like, wait a minute, is that a girl? Anyway, but it's a big industry now. It's an industry with no boundaries on it. The possibilities are endless. You go to Comic-Con and you can just spend the entire 4.5 days in video game heaven, or you can spend the entire 4.5 days in looking at original artwork or at animation cells or, you know, whatever else it is. You can just go. I know people who go to look at the cosplayers. For them, it's a costume convention. And the costumes are astounding. They're just, I make a point, particularly at WonderCon, because it's a little easier to find them all at WonderCon. I make a point of always making time to go out and just look at the costumes, my jaw drops when I see how much work and creativity people have put in, and also how physically fit a lot of the people in the there are people now wearing superhero costumes who look like they're entitled to wear superhero costumes. They're built like superheroes.
They don't need the foam padding.
They don't. They, you know, except the guy with the Hulk hands. Other than that, they're all. It's. I also love the fact that you always see, no matter what assemblage you get of cosplayers at a convention, and this is also true if you go to one of these touristy areas like Times Square or outside the Chinese Theater in Hollywood, where people wear costume characters and ask for tips. They can design the best looking Spider-Man costume, and he's wearing Nikes. He can't get the footwear right. They spend all this effort to do. They can do Thor's hammer. They can do Conan's swords. They can do everything. They just can't seem to get a pair of boots with webs on.
Who knows? Well, on this same note about Comic-Con, as you said, I mean, you've been every year, and you said you don't go to get to sign things, but what do you go for? What keeps you going back every year?
Well, the main thing is, I had a lovely friend who passed away, his name Earl Kress, and Earl Kress would go to Disneyland about 3 times a month. He had an annual pass, one of those pass holders, and he'd just go down there. And I, I go to Disneyland once every 10 years. Like that. And I said, "What's the appeal of it for Disneyland?" He says, "I just like being around so many people having such a good time. It is so much fun to be around so many people having the time of their lives." And that's one of the appeals of comic. It also, for me, the appeal is that I get to see friends. You can't be bored for a second. Anywhere you turn around, there's someone interesting to look at, someone interesting to talk to. I have a schedule. When I'm at Comic-Con, I have this schedule, and it's like 8 o'clock breakfast meeting with someone, 9 o'clock signing, 10 o'clock panel, 11 o'clock interview, 12 o'clock panel. It goes right down there, and it's every second of the day is budgeted for 4.5 days. Now, I couldn't live at that pace normally, but it's kind of fun to do it for every year for a couple of days. I used to go to the convention with this lovely woman who was in my life, named Carolyn Kelly. She was the daughter of Walt Kelly, who did the comic strip Pogo. And she would go with me every year, and I'd give her the schedule, and she'd look at it and shriek by how many things were on it. And then I'd say, "Look, I've got little red markings here. These are the things I think you would enjoy. You don't have to go to this panel. You don't have to go to this panel. I think you'd enjoy this panel." And she would go to 20%, 25% of the panels I was doing. So Carolyn unfortunately passed away 2 years ago. And I now take this friend of mine named Amber, who wanted to be here today. Amber was going to come over early enough to peek in and say hello on this video, but she's at school still. And the first time I took Amber down, I gave her the schedule that I printed out for Carolyn. She said, "What are these little red markings here?" And I said, "Oh, these are the panels I think you'd like to go to, that you'll enjoy." And she said, "Oh, I'm going to everything. I'm going to every panel with you. I'm not going to leave your side. I'd go in the men's room with you if they'd let me. I just want to go to every single thing you." And she kept that up until about 30 Friday. But finally, she said, "Is it okay if I go back to the room and take a nap for these next 2 panels?" But she's going to try and do all of them again this year. We'll see if she makes it. But I love the camaraderie. I love seeing people who are happy. I love the feeling that someplace in that room, not far from me, someone is making a career. Someone is getting discovered. Someone is showing their portfolio. Someone is getting a job. Someone is marketing their product. There's so much creativity in that room. There's so much ambition. There's so much excitement. There's somebody there who's excited to meet this artist or that writer or that actor. The interaction there, it's just 4.5 days of joy. And that's what I do it for. I think I just like being there. I like the energy. I don't mind the crowds, which of course I have a badge which gets me everywhere, but and I'm also large, so I can get through the crowds faster than some people. But I just enjoy the fact that for 4.5 days you're surrounded by people who are just having a hell of a time.
No, I'm the same way. Like, honestly, like, I hate, quite frankly, like, leaving my home. I hate going anywhere, like, the whole rest of the year. But Comic-Con, like, I'm good. It's very different.
I've barely left my home the last 2 months to go to doctor appointments. I've actually barely gone downstairs. I'm upstairs. I'm living upstairs now. When I just nodded, my cleaning lady was slipping in some things for me. She comes over and cleans everything that she's in cleaning rooms I don't go into. I don't know why that is, but it's just, I have chosen for my life a profession where you sit alone a lot and work.
Yeah.
And after we do this podcast tonight, I'm going to just be sitting here at the same chair on the same computer, writing all night. And I enjoy that. Something I've been doing for 55 years. And I love it. I enjoy it. But it's fun to take a vacation from it and to go off and be in this magical place where everybody kind of likes everybody else automatically going in. It's just
Absolutely. But only for 4.5 days. Like after that, no.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think we're all there for the same reason. So we're all just automatically connected just right by that fact that we're all there to see our favorite something.
Yeah, well, it's not judgmental. I used to go to the early days of Comic-Con, but also I just went to early science fiction conventions in the late 60s, early 70s. And there was kind of this defensive feeling of a lot of those people that that somebody was saying you should be ashamed of what you like. You should be that's for nerds and geeks and you know and I don't get that anymore. I never actually felt that myself much, but I don't even hear people complaining about that much because now people envy you going to Comic-Con. When people find out, people who've never been to Comic-Con, they find out I'm going to Comic-Con. They go, oh my God, that sounds like such a wonderful place to be. And it's amazing that you've been there so much and they get all excited about it. Just the prospect. It's like saying that I'm going to Brigadoon, or going to some enchanted land that only appears for a couple of days every year.
That is definitely true. So there have been a lot of big changes over the years, but last year we had one of the biggest, and that is that Faye Desmond retired in August. And for those who don't know, Faye Desmond was the director of Comic-Con. She has run the ship, the day-to-day, everything for, as long as I can remember. And I've been going for not nearly as long as you, but close to 30 years, around 30 years.
Faye has been indispensable. Yes.
And so I'm guessing that you two knew each other and got to work with her a lot. You want to tell us a little bit about her and maybe some favorite memories or what she meant to Comic-Con?
Well, I didn't work that closely with her because Faye had one of the skills that is absolutely essential if you're going to have a job like that, which is the skill to be able to delegate. And the people around her, she was fabulous at that stuff. I hope she's not uninvolved now. I hope she's got some connection to the convention as an advisor, if nothing else, because her advice was always very good. But she's got a lot of good people around her. The con will not miss her in the sense that all the people who have been there for years, the staff is wonderful. And believe me, I have been to conventions I would not say that about. I've been to conventions that I was just horrified by the management and how they did not understand their own jobs. They did not understand contingencies. They did not understand crisis management. You got to be real good at crisis management because there's always a crisis. And Faye, every year, Faye was good enough at her job to just say, send me a thing, Mark, will you come again next year? I'll be there, fine, good. And then turn me over to other people to handle the specifics. And I'd say hello to her. And I always feel guilty taking up these people's time because she, at any given moment at a convention, she's doing 111 things. And now maybe she can go to the convention. We do 4. It'd be nice if she could be there and enjoy it. There are people who've worked at the convention for 20 years or more who will say to me, someday I want to go see one of your quick draw games. Someday I want to go see one of your cartoon voices. They don't have the time to enjoy the convention because they're too busy dealing with the fact that some movie star wants, raisinets in his hotel room.
And we have a comment from the chat from Gary, former Comic-Con International director of publications and other things. Not retired yet. This will be her last Comic-Con. So she is retiring soon, but this is the last one. So anyone out there, if you ever happen to run into her in her various travels across the con over a few days, wish her well and thank her for many years of service on putting on the show that honestly, she was one of those people who the show would not be what it is if it wasn't for her. So definitely someone that you want to thank if you ever have a chance to run across her, which she's probably, like you said, managing 100 different emergencies at a time, and you may never see her, but you will feel her effect when you go to Comic-Con.
And most of that applies to Gary Sasson also. Gary was an important part of that convention. Made the website look great, the publications look great, the designs, and everything, and just helping hold the convention together and bringing that spirit of love of comics, underscoring it. This is the one of the very few conventions, I won't say the only one, but very few of the big conventions in this country that isn't run for sheer profit. It's a nonprofit organization. The people running it are not trying to squeeze every nickel they can out of the attendees. They spend money on guests because they want to honor the people, not because they think they'll bring in a crowd. They don't need to do that. They don't need to advertise big stars to bring in a crowd. The convention sells out in 4 minutes or whatever. How fast did it sell out this year? You guys were monitoring it.
Well, it's yeah, I mean, so it sells out in like 90 minutes, but that's only because like they space it out. Like they only let so many people in at a time to purchase. Like if it was a free for all, yeah, I mean, it would sell in like 30 seconds.
Yeah, 2 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So instead of inviting the biggest names, they invite people whose presence there helps to keep the spirit of comics and related arts. So when I'm using comics in the broadest term, because obviously there's science fiction writers there, there's filmmakers, there's cosplayer designers, there's video game engineers, people like that as well. And the convention makes guests out of those people instead of the superstars who will just keep bringing warm bodies. Not that there's anything wrong with, conventions that bring superstars.
Totally. Before I take things in another direction, Gary said he thanked you, and then he said you made my life much easier as my go-to guy for comics panels. So
Gary is one of the reasons I do that many panels, because he was the programming director. In fact, Gary gave us the germ cell theater for the quick draw game we do every year. He came to me one day and said, could we do something with, cartoonists, like a drawing contest of some sort or something like that? And I ran with the idea, but he deserves a lot of credit for that. I don't want to overpraise him at the expense of all the others there, because there are a lot of good people who run the convention. I love the staff there.
absolutely. Well, I want to take things on a totally different topic. So you were the developer for the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon in the 80s. And I thought it was so cool that you did a panel last year kind of celebrating that, especially because, I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like D&D has just like had a real surge in popularity here in the last 8 years or so. Do you feel that way at all?
I'm outside the gaming world, so I
That's
don't.
okay.
I don't really see much of it. That panel last year was the only panel I think I was on that I didn't host. Maybe it was one of them, but they asked me to be on it, and I could squeeze it in. It was fortunately at a time slot when I wasn't doing something else, and it was nice to be in a room full of people who really loved that show. I was not that involved in it after writing the pilot, the Bible, because I had other work. I came in. My entire involvement with that show was all done in about 2 weeks. My job was to get the network to buy it, and I did. And then they did it without me and did a very fine job of it. But what's interesting, and this has something to do with the internet. The internet enables people of like interest to connect with one another. A guy in Holland who loves Dungeons and Dragons can talk to a guy in Louisville who loves Dungeons and Dragons. They can connect. They can have a website together, or they can visit each other's web pages. They can share stuff on Facebook or on Twitter or whatever it's called this week. And in the same way, the Comic-Con brings together all these interests, and there's, you can fill a room full of people who are interested in Dungeons and Dragons, or you can fill a room with people who are interested in some particular video game or in some particular comic book, and they get together. one of my joys every year is we do the Jack Kirby tribute panel on Sunday every year. And I'm in a room full of people I like, because if they like Jack Kirby, I probably like them. And they're probably very smart people and they appreciate Jack. And there's a lot of love in that room for the guy who isn't there. And it's nice to talk about Jack with people who appreciate him and want to know more about him. And it was nice to be on that panel and talk about Dungeons and Dragons to a very packed room full of people who were excited to hear about how the show came to be and who did what on it. And I was able to, the credits don't always explain everybody who did everything. And I was able to talk about some of the fine artists and writers who worked on the show, who deserve more credit than they may have received.
Well, that was
Absolutely.
the cartoons I watched a lot when I was a kid. And in fact, in our last Under the Tents post, I lamented about the cartoons that my sister and I fought over constantly every Saturday morning. We would fight, and I still to this day am traumatized by Strawberry Shortcake and Rainbow Bright. But thank God for Dungeons and Dragons. Thank you for creating that and throwing that into the universe so I can have something to watch.
Well, Gary Gygax created Dungeons and Dragons. A couple other people, including a man named Dennis Marks, figured out basis of turning it into a show. I stepped in and tried to, haul it across the finish line and get CBS to say, yes, we'll spend a few $1 million on buying episodes of this thing. And that's about it. It's important not to overinflate what you do, because it takes away from somebody else's credit.
Well, thank you for closing that. I appreciate that.
I was the closer. I closed the deal. I figured out how to, repackage other people's ideas into something CBS would say yes to. That's about it.
So, is there anything at all that you could possibly tease for any of the panels coming up this year?
Well, I will not give the exact names, but I have the two strongest cartoon voice panels I've ever done. The personnel, I've got the people all agreed to do them. Oddly enough, for some reason, it's like something in the wind. All of a sudden, everybody started calling me saying, "Hey, it's like today. Let's all." And I staffed the panels in 2 days, and I'm delighted with the people. You'll have to trust me on that. They're very strong panels. I'm going to be doing the quick draw as always, I'm sure. We're going to do a panel on Gru, probably. We're going to do a panel on Pogo, which I have involved with the Pogo books. I can't tell you. I'll tell you a panel that may interest some people. Well, actually, no. That panel has not been approved officially yet. I think there's a couple of good ones, and I don't want to mention them until the convention has actually put them on the schedule. I tell everybody, if you're going to the convention, I'm sure you tell them the same thing. Take the time to look at the schedule, the panel schedule. They usually put it up 2 weeks before each day. With the Wednesday panel schedules up 2 weeks, the Wednesday 2 weeks before, and make a list of what you want to see. Make a list of what you want to go see if you can't get into your first choice. Make yourself a schedule. The convention is not the right place to try to figure out where to go and what to do. It's too big. Although I actually have some friends who just go, they just wander upstairs and they just wander each room that's got available seating and watch until they're bored and then move on to the next. And they seem to have a good time. But you'll get, if you don't do this, you're going to get home, look at the schedule and find out, oh my God, I missed seeing this person. I missed that. There were a couple of years there where one of my jobs was to interview Ray Bradbury at the convention. And I would interview Ray every year from 2 o'clock to I think 3. And it was the most mesmerizing. I saw people coming up to me mesmerized by that panel. They thought it was the most amazing man. He was one of the great public speakers. He had wonderful stories. And I had the skills too strong a word, the knack for reminding him of stories I'd heard him tell earlier. And all I would just do there is cue my favorite Ray Bradbury stories and say, Ray, tell us about this thing. And he would and then I was done. I just get to sit there. And 12 minutes later, he finishes the story. And I look out and there's an amazing arrays of fathers and sons or parent groups with kids. And if I had had the concession outside to sell Ray Bradbury books, I could have made a fortune, because all these kids listening to this man speak, and they went, I want to connect with this man. I want to read some of his stories for myself. And they were wonderful panels. And you do see panels at these conventions that are kind of life-changing in a way. We had a panel with a couple of years ago. I didn't find her, but we found this woman named Joy Murchison Kelly, who had ghost-written Wonder Woman in the 40s. Never got real credit for it. Was one of the first women who got to write comics. One of the few people alive who could talk about the people who worked on Wonder Woman in the 40s, William Marston and his Harry Peters and others. And she had the time of her life. She was like 94 years old, and she was just amazed at how many young women came up to her dressed as Wonder Woman and said, "You inspired me. You changed my life." There's a wonderful connection there with people who make their work. Years ago, there was a great comic book artist named Nick Cardy, who was one of the greatest artists who ever worked in comics. And he came to the convention. I don't know the year exactly. You can look up what year he got an Inkpot Award. That was the year he came to the convention. And he was very scared to come. He was afraid nobody would know who he was. He was afraid nobody would care about him. And he sat there for 4.5 days with a line of people, many of them professional artists, saying, "You're the reason I got to the business. You inspired me. I learned how to draw. You made me want to learn how to draw. I'd look at your work and copy it." And Nick was the kind of guy who would cry if you told him the tide was going. And he was reduced to, had all these emotional moments when he realized that what his work had meant to people. Because you work in isolation. You're sitting there drawing, when I write stuff, if it's going to elicit laughter, I don't hear it while I'm writing it. And I used to enjoy, we haven't done this for a while. I would go to schools and teach kids how to cartoon, and we'd show a couple of cartoons I've written. And I just got to hear the laughter. I did it so I could hear the kids laugh, which was enjoyable. Well, Nick was able at that convention to just suddenly realize how important his life's work had been to others. And he was literally moved to tears by it. And I've seen other parts of it. And then there are people who will tell you that somebody they met at the Comic-Con changed their life for the better, inspiring them, advising them. I can't tell you how many people I know who will tell me how meeting Jack Kirby when Jack was at the convention, made them realize something about themselves and their talents and how to put them to use. So did I just answer your question, or did I just get wildly off the subject there?
A little bit of both, but I love that story. That was really, really touching. That was a great story. And I related to a lot of it.
Good.
So we have a reader question, and this might be an easy one or it might be really hard, Mark. But Swag Collector wants to know, what was your favorite year at San Diego?
It was the year that Alan Swan. That's not my favorite.
I've seen that movie.
We were doing the Boss Hijack sketch. My ex-writing partner was one of the writers of that film. Dennis Palumbo was my writing partner when I got into television. Dennis was one of the main writers of that film.
My favorite movie ever. I love that movie.
I'll tell you my favorite panel we ever did. I think there were other panels that year. There's a fellow named Dave Siegel who lives in Las Vegas, who was a fan of Golden Age comic book artists. This is back when there were some. It's an endangered species now. There's very few left. But Dave used to track down these guys who were out of comics and away from the industry and drag them to San Diego. And one year he brought a couple of guys who had no idea they had fans, absolutely no idea. And these old timers who were, in their 80s or 90s were suddenly surrounded by fans. We had a couple of years there, but one in particular, Well, a guy named Richard Morrissey helped bring a man named John Broome to the convention. John Broome was the, the writer, probably the most writer responsible for DC Silver Age Karma, the DC Silver Age Zeitgeist. He wrote the original the Barry Allen Flash and Green Lantern along with Gardner Fox. And John Broome came to a comic convention, and it was a very strange thing. I did a panel with him, and at one point I asked the audience, which was 500 people, it was packed. It would have been larger if we'd been in a larger room. We had 500 people there. I said, how many people here have written comic books professionally? And every person in the room put their hands up. All the writers usually don't go see other writers, but this was a chance to meet the master and hear him talk about his work. And that was very moving. And then I think it was the same year we gave Inkpot Awards to a couple of the other veteran artists and such. And it was kind of a year of celebration. Can't tell you exactly the year or what it was, but those were the moments I really remember a lot. Although, we still every so often have a wonderful quick draw where everything works. We have a cartoon voice panel where you have this brilliance coming off the stage. I'm a member of the Magic Castle, which you may have heard of, Magicians Club, and you go to the Magic Castle and you see a look on people's faces, which is a disbelief. It's like, no, I didn't just see that woman get sawed in half. No, I didn't just see that person levitate. I didn't just see the cards appear out of nowhere. Well, I do the quick draw game, and I'm out with the audience getting suggestions with the cartoonists, and I see that same look on people's faces. No, I didn't just see someone draw that joke out of nowhere in 5 seconds. And then we do the cartoon voice panel. And, on these jokes and these panels, the performing is not on me. I don't make the funny jokes on the drawing screens. I don't make the funny words that come out of the actors' mouths. So I have the luxury of being able to watch the audience and to see that look. And they're going, no, I didn't just see that man talk like Bugs Bunny. No, I didn't it's the same thing. It's that wonderment, seeing it live and seeing it happen right in front of you without a screen in front of you. We're so used to watching screens. It's hard for me. Like, even when I'm doing this, I have to remind myself I'm talking to real people in real time. I see so much old stuff on this screen and so many artificial human beings on this screen. It's nice to talk to real human beings in real time. And you interrelate to people at the convention. And I guess I'm not answering your question very well, but that's what comes to mind here.
I think that's a great answer. And honestly, Mark, like, one of the things I think that we love the most about you is how much you champion, like, giving recognition to unsung heroes. Like, I mean, I know that's one of my favorite things about you.
Yeah, we will be announcing the winners shortly of the Bill Finger Award this year, which I am the administrator of. And every year we honor a writer who we feel has not received due attention and or money, and a posthumous. And I love it when Joy Murchison Kelly was our honoree. I would say to people, veterans in the comic industry, hey, we're giving the award this year to Joy Murchison Kelly. And I loved it when they went, who's that? And then when they found out, well, we've got this year, I won't say who it is, but one of the posthumous award we're giving right now is going to be a big who's that? It's someone you should have known about. It's someone whose work you probably read at some point, but they never got a single credit line in their entire history of comics. And I like the fact that we can use the convention as a tool to honor people like that and put their names into the record books.
That's
absolutely cool. Well, I think we are all very excited to see what you've got going on this year, Mark. But I think that is probably about it, unless we had any other questions in the chat. So why don't you tell our readers where they can find you?
I'm in this little box in the corner. No, I have my blog is called newsfromme.com. It's I've been doing it now since 2000. I rarely miss a day. I even did it from a hospital bed for a month. On I did it on the iPhone here. I blogged on the phone here for a while for the hospital bed. And it's not a good place to go if you like Donald Trump, but other than that, you should enjoy it. I just unfortunately today I had to post an obit for an old girlfriend of mine named Susan Buckner, a lovely lady who was. If you go to this blog and read about her, you'll hear who she was. And so I like the fact that I can say goodbye to these people and maybe tell people a little bit about them. But that's where you find me, and then everything is an offshoot of that, pretty much. We have a new issue of Grew out now. We have the new Pogo book's been delayed a little bit. That's all. We're coming out this. I hope I'll be out for the convention. We're doing a collection of a book that Sergio and I did called Space Circus. And it's got a beautiful, handsome volume of that that's going to come out, I hope, in time for San Diego. That's it. I'm at my blog a lot. I live on my blog.
Wow, we wouldn't know anything at all about living on our blog. Nothing at all. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for joining us. I'm sure that we will be posting lots of news about your panels here in the coming weeks. And I'm also sure we'll have you back on next year.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. I love your blog. You are from a valuable public service. I send people there so that I don't have to explain to them all this stuff. Thank you. So long.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
Okay.
Next up, we have, well, news and exclusives and offsites. And Carrie, what's the first news?
It is that the parking lottery actually opens up this week. It opens up, I believe, tomorrow. Yep, tomorrow at 10 a.m. So this is going to work just like it has in other years, if you've ever done it, where basically tomorrow you can sign up for the lottery. You have quite a bit of time. You have until Sunday, June 10th. And then after that, they will randomize everybody. And supposedly they're hoping to send out your group on Monday, June 10th, and then start the first sale on June 17th. So if you need parking, this is the sale for you. Just make sure you sign up at some point between tomorrow and June 10th or June 9th. June 9th.
So basically, you have a month. So if you're listening to this a few days after it's live, don't worry. Parking signing up is still open until June.
Don't feel like you have to open it at 10 a.m. tomorrow. It is okay on this one. Speed does not help you. Let's not crash Ace's site when it's open for a month.
It's not open registration.
No, it's not. It's okay.
All right. So the next thing that's up in the news is actually pretty big news. And that is we have found out that there will be no eBay auctions for badges, which has happened over the last few years, actually. And so now the only way beyond the initial, returning registration and then open registration is maybe if there's a contest here or there, but from Comic-Con themselves is the Comic-Con Museum's Legend membership tier. If you want to purchase that, you will get a badge to Comic-Con. Unfortunately, it is a bit more expensive than most of those auctions went for because it is $1,900 per person.
Now you do get a year admission to the museum, but
yes,
let's be honest. Most of the people buying this are not buying it for the museum membership, would be my guess. So, yeah.
And the thing is that this membership is really only really good for San Diego residents or people who can get there somewhat regularly to take advantage of special invitations for member-only exhibits and, the special stuff that comes along with being able to actually make it to the museum all year long.
Yeah. Yeah. So no eBay auctions, kids.
Yeah. So if you see Comic-Con badges on eBay, they are not good.
Do not buy them.
Maybe somebody wants to get that Legend membership and just donate toward the museum. Maybe they're feeling philanthropic.
Then they get a badge too.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Win-win. Before we go on, Carolyn Mendoza asked in the chat, my daughter got an attendee badge on returning registration and paid for it, but got approved for press and completed the registration. Does she have to email Comic-Con for refund on attendee badge?
Yes. Yes. So there's a couple different ways that you can get a refund. The information is on their website. If you go to like Comic-Con and then badges and then refunds. But you can do it in your member ID, or there's a form that you can submit and you can explain things. For like an attendee badge, honestly, like I would just hop on into your member ID and just cancel and refund it from there. Normally I tell people to email, but in that instance,
But yes, you have to do the process. It's not just going to happen automatically.
Correct.
But they have till the 13th, correct?
To get a refund, yes.
Yeah, so you've got a little less than a week.
Yeah.
So if she wants to get the refund,
get on that.
She should get on that and make sure she does it within the next couple of days. But now moving on, we are bringing back our attendee of the week. Each week between now and San Diego Comic-Con, we are going to highlight one attendee of the week on our site. Someone who has some cool Comic-Con memories to share, and don't we all, right?
We do.
Yep. We do. I think it's fun. I think this is actually like one of the most fun things that we do, because it's kind of like our chance to celebrate you guys and what you all do at the convention. And I proof these every week. I'm not the one who does these, but I definitely proof them. But it's fun just to like read the stories and hear about it, because everybody has such a different experience at Comic-Con. You know, like we all attend the same convention, but we don't have the same convention.
Yeah, I hear that.
It's true.
And of course, just like the let me see, can I figure out my hands here? Yeah, that way. Look at my name. It says the commish. That should give you a hint that commissions are a lot of them are opening back up again. We're seeing a lot of artists opening their pre-con commissions. So if you're interested in getting on any one of those lists, go check out our post. There's a bunch with commissions open. There are a few that have slots filling up, some with slots that are already full, but there are still a bunch on there that have openings and would love to hear from you guys. So please check out that post, get in touch with your favorite artist, and get that one-of-a-kind, unique piece of art that you're going to hang on your wall like James and Carrie have behind them.
Yes, for sure. I also just want to mention that if you are still looking for a hotel, to definitely keep trying. The hotel refund is coming up here. I believe it's next week. Is that also the 13th? I need to look. But around that refund date, there will definitely be a lot more hotels that pop up. So definitely keep checking. I've seen lots of folks who've even managed to grab like gas lamp hotels this week, and hotels continue to pop up all the way through when the convention is, basically. So if you do not have a hotel room yet, like, all hope is not lost. Definitely keep checking.
Persistence is key.
Yeah, and I'm totally wrong. Reservations may be canceled on or before Wednesday, May 8th. So basically tomorrow, I think there will be quite a few popping up. So definitely keep checking.
There you go. I think that's about it for just the general news, but next we have a bunch of offsite information already, and we have news on what many consider to be the biggest, the funnest, the craziest, the loudest offsite.
The worst sandwich offsite?
The worst sandwich offsite? We're talking about Fun Days, of course, Funko Fun Days. And we found out at C2E2 that they're going to do Fun Days over 2 days this year. And it will be likely, but we don't have word on which 2 nights, but likely Friday night and Saturday night, because those are the most obvious ones to do it on.
I mean, it could be Thursday and Friday.
It could be. Yeah, we'll find out. But also, just yesterday on Distractors post on Instagram, Mike Becker, the Funko Chief Officer of Fun, confirmed that the event will be the exact same event over both nights. So essentially, they want more people to have access to the event. So they are essentially doubling the number of people who can attend by having the same event both nights. They just want more people to see the show. He did say that they will have an unusual twist at the end, which is interesting because we have no idea what that's going to be. But that is really the extent of the information, except for the theme, which is Fantastic Voyage, with, of course, the 4 themed teams with the different mascots. They showed off the Box of Fun. They showed off Funkoville, which will be their booth at on the floor. So, I mean,
which is Funko Airways, like it was at C2E2.
So, I mean, it's not a whole bunch of information, but thankfully we do know that being a 2-day event, maybe they're going to actually require everyone to only buy tickets to one event so they can fit in as many people as possible. Hopefully they manage to do that, because I think that is definitely something that is needed to be done so that double the number of people actually can attend instead of same number of people getting both nights.
Yeah, totally.
And so that is, I think, some pretty big news. And we'll, of course, find out more in the coming days and weeks about tickets and when and how much and all that kind of stuff.
And if we have to sit there for 5 hours
Hitting
refreshing
refresh
Twitter,
just to be put in randomly in line.
Yes. That was the worst. So we'll see.
All right.
Yeah, the twist at the end is they're going to have better sandwiches this year.
I think they actually will. Like, I mean, after last year, like, surely they will. Surely.
Hey, don't call me Shirley. But do check out. Oh yeah, that was a hammy segue. Do check out the Batman Live in Concert, the 1989 film. Some of us, like me and James, are old enough to remember when that came out and just blew our collective minds. But now they're doing the 35th anniversary concert, sponsored by the San Diego Civic Theater. They'll be celebrating the 35th. I cannot talk today.
It's crazy because this is a talking thing.
I know.
Oh my gosh. But you're on a podcast, Andy. Get it together. So yeah, celebrate the 35th. I am old. Anniversary of Tim Burton's spin on Batman, in which the film will be accompanied by a live orchestra conducted by James Olmsted. Guests are encouraged to dress up as their favorite DC superhero. If that's Batman, obviously appropriate. Tickets start at $48.50 and they are on sale now. So go get them.
Yes, absolutely. So one thing that will be back this year that I know everybody was super psyched about is Paramount Plus's The Lodge is coming back. And just like last year, it will have a ton of shows and movies and all kinds of things that it's going to feature, including Knuckles, Halo, Frasier, Lawman Bass Reeves, Dora, Mean Girls, Bob Marley, One Love, Survivor, SpongeBob SquarePants, Star Trek Discovery, Halo, and a whole lot more. So you can go look at our post. And actually, I want to mention this because Andy loves it too. If you liked last year's Ghost activation at their booth, it basically sounds like they're going to do a different iteration of that, like at the Lodge. So if you're a fan of Ghosts, which you should be. So that's cool. They'll have like drinks again. So yeah, it'll be back Thursday through Sunday. More details to come, including presumably how to register. But I know a lot of people are really excited about that one.
Well, I'll be going for Ghosts, obviously, and of course Star Trek.
It's crazy how much they packed into that small space with all the
like
different franchises.
It was yes, they did a really good job, and none of it felt like super packed either, and the wait like wasn't horrible for Comic-Con. I don't know, it was just a really well run event, I thought.
Well-oiled machine. I think it's one of the best offsites that's been for the past couple of years.
So another thing that people seem very excited about, including me, is that we are going to get a Sharpie bus. The Sharpie bus is heading around the US on a couple of stops, including San Diego Comic-Con, and you will be able to stop and get free Sharpies, as well as like try out their new marker on all different kinds of materials. We don't know yet where it's going to be, but surely this is going to be in the interactive zone. I mean, there's basically nowhere else.
It sounds right.
Yeah. So
yeah, this year's randomness of that's coming to Comic-Con.
Yes. I don't know. Hey, look, I'm not going to turn down a free Sharpie. So I actually like that. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's not that random because when you think about it, get those Sharpies for those autographs.
Yes. Yes, totally. We made like our own branded Sharpies like one year. I might still have one.
2019. Yeah, I love that. Those were great.
She's got her fishbowl of stuff.
I know. I'm like digging in there. Like, do I have one?
She's totally keeping
it
in business.
I know. Carry on. I might find one eventually.
Yeah. While she digs through her fishbowl there, I'll mention the Disney in concert, The Sound of Magic. If you are coming into town just a little bit early, on Saturday, July 20th, let me see here. Who's hosting this one? The Rady Shell. There it is. It's going to be at the Rady Shell at Jacobs Park. You will find Disney in concert, The Sound of Magic, and it will kick off at 7:30 and will feature live music from many of your favorite Disney films, including Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Moana, Alice in Wonderland, Aladdin, The Jungle Book, Frozen, The Lion King, Fantasia, Encanto, Beauty and the Beast, and more. So I will probably be there with my wife singing along to everything. And if I'm not, she will. But yeah, it'll be Saturday, July 20th. So if you're in town a couple of days early, go check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. For the record, I did actually find our like branded Sharpie. So nice. Look, my fishbowl is like where I keep our buttons. And so like when I need a giveaway item, I just pull something out of the fishbowl. Don't make fun of it. Really another offsite this year is they are celebrating 25 years of Mission Hill, which was a series that hailed from Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein, who were some of the writers, producers, and showrunners for some of the biggest animated hits ever, including The Simpsons, Futurama, Disenchantment. So they will be having a screening followed by a Q&A with the creators and possibly some surprise guests, as well as trivia for prizes. That will be at the Music Box on Thursday, July 25th, and tickets are available if you are interested in that. There are tons of other offsites on our website already. It is only May 7th, including like if you like game nights, Punch Bowl Social is having a board game night on Wednesday, so if you don't have a preview night ticket, you can totally go to that. If you love Star Wars, Mach Isley is returning for their like emo night that I don't fully understand, but it sold out last year, so a lot of people liked it. There is a Barks and Brews event on, when is this thing? On Saturday, July 27th. So if you don't have a badge and you want to go drink some beer and hang out with some dogs, that's a pretty cool afternoon. There is a Sonic Symphony where a live symphony will be playing the music of Sonic the Hedgehog on Saturday, July 27th. There is, if you don't mind traveling a little bit further, there's a Barbie the movie in concerts happening. Now, again, it is a little bit further, but that is on, where is it? Sunday, July 28th. So if you don't have anything to do, that could be a fun way to end the convention. And then the American Comedy Company has listed their comedy shows for Comic-Con, which includes Everybody Should Be. It's a returning favorite, Doug Loves Movies, as well as Maria Bamford and even Chris Hardwick. So there are lots of offsites and there are so many more to come. I will say we've had a lot of questions lately about like, when do tickets for offsites go up? Or like, when do you register for offsites? And I'm like, it depends which offsite, first of all. Because again, there are tickets already available for some offsites, but if you're talking about like the studio ones, those tend to happen much, much closer to the convention. Typically, those don't start going up until like 3 weeks before the convention. And then one thing that I did not mention is what just happened shortly before this podcast, which is that XLE is bringing back their shows this year. They will have 3 nights of parties, starting with the first night on Wednesday, July 24th. They're bringing back their Ready Party 1. And they will kick things off with Legends of Fantasy, which is going to celebrate a whole bunch of your 80s fantasy films. They'll have live music. They've got a VIP section that includes some fun giveaways. So all that information is on our website. And for everybody asking about the blog party, give me a little bit of time, but I very much think, yes, there will be a block party. I very much think it will be Sunday night. So let me keep talking to them.
Even if it's us sitting on a piece of grass, handing out cups of water.
I mean, that is literally how Cups of Water started. Is that's what I used to threaten. Is like, look, guys, like if a venue like won't let us have a party, like we'll be on a patch of grass somewhere handing out Dixie cups of water. But yeah, I very much think we're gonna have a party. So just give me just a little bit of time. But we have a theme that I don't even totally know if like James and Andy know.
Keeping things close to the vest this year to make sure that it's all surprise and amazement for all of us.
Yep. I've got Val working on some stuff. Like nobody knows what I'm doing, so be a fun surprise for everybody.
Oh goodness. Okay, so let's move on to exclusives, which there are not very many yet. You can expect a lot of exclusives to be popping up over the next 2 months, of course. But the first one is Diamond Previews, and Diamond Select Toys and Gentle Giant, of course, are coming back with a whole bunch of stuff. We have things like the Star Wars Mandalorian Off-World Jawa Jumbo figure, which will be $80. The Star Wars Grievous 1/6 scale mini bust, that will be $130. We have some Marvel animated style statues like the Silver Surfer, Ghost Rider, Dr. Octopus, and a Comic-Con exclusive Iron Man. Those will be prices TBD for most in the $60 to $75 range, it looks like. We have a Marvel MCU WandaVision White Vision mini bust. And that's all we have so far, but I think they tend to come out with a slew of things amongst their different brands.
They do.
So expect a lot more from them.
Yeah, absolutely. They do it a little bit weird. All of Previews does, because basically like their exclusives are available through comic book stores. And so like if you want a lot of their stuff on the show floor, like you wouldn't necessarily go to like the Previews booth. You would like go and get a list of booths on the show floor that have their exclusives. It's always a little bit weird. But yeah, Previews make some awesome stuff. And they should have, I mean, they usually have like 30 items. So there's a lot more to come.
All right. And next up, we've got the Her Universe Fashion Show, which is going to be coming back once again this year. We learned at WonderCon that the Star Wars Rebels actress Ashley Eckstein is going to be bringing her fashion show back. It'll be on Thursday, July 25th at the Manchester Grand Hyatt Hotel, and sponsored by Mattel this year, celebrating 65 years of Barbie. But competitors' designs can be inspired by any fandom of their choosing. It doesn't have to be Barbie. So look for that on Thursday, July 25th, again at the Manchester Grand Hyatt.
Absolutely. So we have plenty of other news up on the site, including our Under the Tent sections, which we've been posting like 1 or 2 a week. And those will definitely be increasing in volume. I wanted to get to a couple of reader questions in the chat, including, I'm looking for it now, but I saw 2 people who asked about like, do we think Hollywood is back this year? And James and Andy, I'm going to toss this to you guys. What do you think?
Yes.
I agree. There's no strike. There's no reason for them at this point not to come. So I don't see why they wouldn't.
Honestly, if 3 actors show up, Hollywood is back, because there were not 3 actors at Comic-Con last. I mean, there were, but no, I think we're going to see plenty of stuff come back now that there is nothing stopping them from coming back. Will it be in the same volume as some of the biggest years? Probably not. Will it be more than there was the last few years? Most likely.
Yes, that's how I feel. Is I think it's going to be way bigger than last year. I think it'll be bigger than 2022. But like, are we going to get 2019 levels? I don't know that we are, just because with the strikes, like so much stuff got delayed, or like hasn't finished filming, or like has just finished filming, so it won't be ready by July. So we do a big breakout every year of like the movies we think are going to be at Comic-Con, or the TV shows we're going to be at Comic-Con. And we will actually be getting the movies post up this week, so you can look at kind of like what we think the predictions of whether or not which movies might be at the convention or not. And then we'll start with TV shows next week, and we break it all down by network. So
Very cool. Can't wait.
Yeah.
And I see
Yeah.
Carolyn Mendoza mentions hopefully Tom Hardy, maybe for some Venom or something else.
I mean, I would love a Venom game, but I would also love, he's doing a comic with Arcbound, and that's actually why I went to New York last year, and I've heard through the grapevine that Arcbound might be at San Diego this year. So I'm like, well, even if Sony doesn't show, I have hope.
and of course, Kellen also mentions the other thing that we all love, which is Severance, and the fact that maybe Apple will bring season 2, and let us all go through some severed experience again.
Yes, that would be amazing.
So
I just want Apple to come back, period. Like, they blew it out of the water, and then they didn't come at all last year. I'm like, come on, kids. Like,
so here's the question I think that a lot of people are actually going to ask, in that Deadpool and Wolverine is coming out Comic-Con weekend. Do we expect something to happen for them, despite the fact that it is opening weekend? Because usually, I mean, obviously Comic-Con is all about promotions for things so that people go see stuff or buy stuff. And with the movie out, I mean, sometimes they just don't feel like they need to. So what do we expect anything?
It's Ryan.
I don't know.
I think he'll pass.
Go ahead, Andy.
Was that Andy?
It's Ryan Reynolds. I mean, do you think he'll pass up an opportunity to do something big and extravagant for it?
You would hope not.
You would hope not. And you got to remember, like, look, Fox brought Deadpool 2 for the Blu-ray release. Like, not even for, like, the movie, but, like, they brought it for the Blu-ray release, which is very outside of the box. Like, that was the year we got the toilet seat covers, and they had, like, the big booth with the Chuck E. Cheese stuff. Like, all of that was literally for the Blu-ray release. So I just feel like they went outside of the box, because they knew if you're going to promote that movie anywhere, like, you promoted it at San Diego. So I have hope that we're going to get something. Now, I don't know if we're going to get like a panel. I don't know if we're going to get
a screening. I mean, maybe we even get an offsite. You never think about Marvel doing an offsite, but they did one for
Captain America, right?
They did one for what?
Oh yeah, they did it for Avengers. They also did it for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think they did one.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did one. Well, they had like those vans that went around. I don't remember.
They did an Avengers one, and then they also had done one that was like an agent thing. And then back when Captain America came out, they did a screening because it was opening that weekend with a Mondo poster.
Yes.
So they have done.
But for like the Avengers one, like nobody knew that was even happening. But like, they have done offsites. I'm like, I don't even feel like an offsite is off the table. So I don't know. I just feel like if they don't do anything, it's a missed opportunity. But I'm also like, we said the same thing last year about Warner Brothers and Barbie.
Yeah.
And what did we get that was pink?
Nothing.
Literally nothing.
But also you have to remember, like you mentioned, Ryan Reynolds, he is the king of marketing, right? Yeah. And promotion. And Hugh Jackman is someone who, I mean, was over in the parking lot at Petco handing stuff out of the back of a van for that robot movie that he did, a Real Steel. So, I mean, they love Comic-Con. They both, enjoy doing things and promoting the stuff that they're really involved in. And of course, based on everything you see, they both are just like having the time of their lives doing this movie. So I would hope that will lead into doing something here, even if it's just some random appearance where you're like, oh my God, Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman are walking around on the show floor dressed as Deadpool and Wolverine and just filming it for something, and random people get to find out about it. That's something like that would be really cool too.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay. I see swag collectors hoping for a Lego exclusive. So say we all. Like, sure would be nice, Lego, if you would bring those back. Yeah. Rom V asks, will there be carpet? I don't know, but I mean, I think at this point, like, carpet has probably, I think those days are gone.
The carpet has been rolled up and put away.
Yeah.
Until we say otherwise, don't expect it anymore.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. Okay. All right.
That's it.
Think so too.
All right. What do we want to talk about? We talked about attendee of the week. We have a Patreon for all those who are new.
We do have a Patreon, and you can win fun stuff. Like, I'll go pull something else out of my little fishbowl. You guys are gonna make fun of me.
Fishbowl.
I just keep all my stuff down here in one nice place. You can get stuff like our fun little yesterday's pen that they made us, and there's a shirt. So there's all kinds of fun stuff that you can get on our Patreon, and all of the money goes back into the site and keeping us live. Our hosting bill is not small, so we do appreciate our patrons very much, and I know that I have been terrible at it this year about like sending out your free monthly stuff, but we'll get better. I promise.
We have a question. Let me check this one real quick. This is another one similar to carpeting. It's just like, do we think? Jason Todd asked, do you all think Sideshow collectibles will come back? That's another one where you just don't know, because I mean, honestly, Sideshow didn't really sell stuff at Comic-Con, and that is a lot of space and a lot of money to just bring things to show.
And they started online con, right?
Right. They did an online con last year.
Yeah, they do Sideshow Con, and I feel it's also worth noting that like when they left, they definitely put out a quote that was like a little bit disparaging towards the convention. Like it was, I don't know, it did not feel like it was a like, well, like maybe we'll be back later. It was basically like, we don't see the value in this buy. Was more the vibe I got, at least.
Right.
Maybe everyone feels different.
Because online they can show a picture of a thing just as well as you walking by and looking at it. So I guess that's their thinking in not doing it anymore.
Yeah, so I am not expecting them to be back. I would be actually very surprised if they came back personally, based on that quote.
Oh, well, that's the way it goes. Things change, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like that bridge is a little burned. Might have gotten singed at the edges.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess that's going to wrap it up for today. So thank you again to Mark for coming on and coming on each year as our first guest. We will be back next week with more news and exclusives and a special guest. And do we have a teaser, or do we have an announcement for who next week's guest is, Carrie?
Yeah, my tease is that next week's guest was in the comment section of tonight. We will be joined by Gary Sassaman, who was the director of multiple departments at Comic-Con over the years, including programming, as Mark talked about, as well as publications. So it's always a fun chat. We'll talk to Gary about his tales from my spinner rack, his blog, and just, his many years at Comic-Con. So it's always a fun time when Gary's on. Awesome.
And so we'll be here every Tuesday live. And of course, you can listen on all the different places that you listen to podcasts. But thank you all for joining us. And we'll be back next week all the way up until San Diego Comic-Con 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. You can sign up for a newsletter, which we have not started yet, but we will likely start in June. But if you want to do that, the link is on the very bottom of our site.
So thank you all again for joining us live and also listening after the fact. So let's wrap this up. And Andy, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
You can find me on the socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at SDCC Wacky Wags, or you could follow my cannabis content at SD Cannablogger and listen to my podcast, Cannablogger's Corner. Carrie, where can we find more of your work on the internet other than sdccblog.com?
You can find me on Twitter at Carrie Dixon, and I think that's also my Instagram handle. Look, I'm changing it up, guys. Like, you could also follow me on Instagram if you really want. What? James, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
I'm everywhere at Dan Regal, and you can also check out the Citizens of Lorcana, a podcast I do weekly, talking about the new Disney trading card game and my experiences playing it and being competitive and all those kinds of things. Thank you also to Beth, our producer, for editing the show and getting this into your ears.
Absolutely. Thank you, Beth. We are on iTunes. If you'd like to subscribe, the links are up in the blog. You can search for SDConCast. If you like what you've heard so far, please review us. We are also on Stitcher Radio and Spotify, and the links are in the show notes.
If you want to get a hold of us, you can send us an email at info@sdccblog.com. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/sdconblog, or tweet us at sd_comic_con. Thank you all for listening, and everybody, go shawarma.